Welcome to Don't Chuck It Up, the podcast where we help students and families navigate the wild journey of the college search and applying to colleges without breaking a sweat. I'm your host, Chuck, and today we're discussing career exploration and using assessments throughout the college admissions process. To help me with this conversation, I have brought in an incredible guest and an expert in this area. Please welcome Amy Trineman to the show. Amy is an independent educational consultant and a certified career counselor. Amy, welcome to the Don't Chuck It Up show.
Thanks so much, Chuck. Thanks for having me today. I look forward to our conversation.
Yeah, this is going to be great. You are a person that has an expertise in something that I am not an expert in. And I know that for many parents and students, careers are on the top of mind. They're like, okay, if my kid's going to go off to college, what are they going to do? What is their job going to be? And schools have changed. We're not talking about this as much in the K-12 system anymore. So parents and students are having to explore this on their own. So that's why I thought it would be great to have you on the show to talk about this a bit. So first off, why don't you introduce yourself a little bit and share a little bit about yourself with our listeners?
Sure, Chuck. My name is Amy Trineman. I've worked in education for 20 years in a variety of capacities. For the longest length of time, I was in a school counseling and career office where I was using weaker tools, and by weaker, I mean free, to help students figure out where their interests lie, where their strengths lie. I also I was a reading interventionist many years ago. I worked in special education. I also moved into administration during the pandemic. I began to take private clients at that time. I've been doing this for 8 years, and I found that going back to my roots as career counselor, I decided to become certified in a number of tools to help families and students identify what natural strengths and abilities are, and see where that can take us with the exploration. One of the things that we all find as independent educational consultants is the stress when a student doesn't know what they want to do,
Yes.
which I think is a very big ask of a teenager that has had precious little exposure to the work world or fields of careers, and they tend to be very linear in their thinking. I like biology. I will be a biologist without seeing the myriad of opportunities out there. So I've integrated that into my practice, and I find it really valuable.
That's incredible. And I think you hit it on the head is that, when they're teenagers, we're asking them, hey, what do you want to be when you grow up? In the same breath that we're reminding them that they have to ask permission to go to the bathroom when they're in high school. So it's like, okay, well, we're not going to give you enough responsibility to go to the bathroom on your own, but we really want you to know what your life career plan is in the same literally sentence. So let's talk about those assessments. I think some people get nervous when they hear the word assessment because it's going to point out, the negative stuff, or it's going to bring up stuff that I don't want to know. So let's talk about some of the assessments that you really have found helpful. And kind of what are those tools that you use and how do they help students and families?
Sure. Thank you. I use 2 assessments predominantly. I use the Myers-Briggs Strong Interest Inventory that is it's been around for almost 100 years. It's evidence-based. It's a really great tool to use to help a student see what their natural interests are. It can help give us a little bit of direction. So my approach is to not say, we're going to figure out exactly what you're going to be, and we're going to stick a pin in the map and draw a straight line to that pin, and that's it. That's your plan. That's your destination. I think it's much more about helping students build intention in what they choose to be involved in, what they choose to explore, to give them exposure in a realm that is outside their academic experience, which is almost entirely core academics. So the strong interest inventory, what I like about it so much is it gives a starting point for, boy, you're really wired in this way. And these may or may not be your natural skills, but these are certainly areas that are interesting to you. Let's take a deeper look here and see what's sort of revealed. And it's fascinating to see the results that can be a student that has a really sharp spike in one area, and boy, is that a laser focus for that student. And other students have a moderate level of interest in just about anything. So where do we go with that, right? So the core of my philosophy is that we don't need to find that final answer. We are looking for directionality. We're looking for ways to experiment that are pretty low effort, low energy. It doesn't have to be an 8-week immersive experience at a college campus or something that costs $10,000 to do a really fancy program. Not that
Right.
I don't have students that do that, but the idea is we take a series of small steps in the direction of exploring. So at the core of my philosophy is the more you understand yourself, the better uh, authenticity really shines in your applications. And we know
Yes.
that authenticity is everything. So exposing them to things that are natural and organic can help in many, many ways. And we can get to that in a moment. The other side of exploring interests, and I think what's important to note here is interests change. Um, uh,
Yes.
Mine certainly have
Yes.
throughout my life. I mean, some have certainly been fixed interests, but I love the work that we do because I'm constantly exposed to what other people are interested in and what other people do for jobs. And so I have this great job where I get to learn about careers and job responsibilities in areas that are wildly different from what I do.
Yeah.
So interests can change, and interests, you can be really interested in something without really having any natural ability. I love music, but I'm not a musician, and I love and really have a deep appreciation for art, but I am in no way an artist. So the the desire that I had was, and it was based on a conversation I had with another IEC, Casey Thompson, who is certified in the Highlands Ability Battery. I said, well, I really like exploring interests because it's really natural and students tend to know what they like and what they don't like. And she really highlighted the power of exploring natural aptitudes.
Mhm.
And the reason why that is so powerful is they're hardwired. By the time somebody is about 15 years old, natural abilities are wired in. They're not likely to change over time. It doesn't mean you can't see sort of weaknesses and think of ways to have that part of your life run, a little bit more smoothly.
Mhm.
But I find that when a family has stress around not knowing what a student wants to do, this baseline exploration of what are you naturally good at, right? And the language that the Highlands Ability Battery uses is what is energizing to you and what is draining. And I feel like that's a really clear way to understand how job tasks can
Yeah.
be energizing or draining. So the Highlands Ability Battery is an assessment that's based on ability. So it is a series of short tests
Mhm.
that reveal an incredible amount of information about what a student, sort of what their personal styles are. And the one that I think is really easily understandable is the sort of introvert extrovert
Yep.
spectrum. What is your preference for working with people? Because an introvert would be very drained by working with people nonstop every day and or being in a really sort of loud and active
Right.
work environment would be sort of taxing for them. So I developed a tool that I call the altitude assessment, which is a series of questions that when a student comes to me, a family comes to me about where do we even begin to think about college major. My assessment asks a series of questions for me to understand, is this person going to benefit more from learning more about what they naturally like, or is this person going to learn more about what they're naturally good at?
Mhm.
They can certainly do both, and some of them do both, but it can be, a lot of energy put into this. So I like the Highlands Ability Battery because even on segments where a student doesn't score very high, and I can use my own example as a perfect example, part of being trained was to take it,
Right.
and the spatial relations was torturous for me. I am not in any way engineering minded. The only bridges I want to build are interpersonal bridges. Do not drive over a bridge that I created. It's just not the way my brain works.
Yeah.
So as I'm taking it, I'm thinking, this is not me. I really am terrible at this. And what I was happy to see in the report of my results is it doesn't say, wow, Amy, you're bad at that. It completely spins it around and frames it as a positive because I don't
Yeah.
think in those spatial terms. I am much more oriented to verbal communications. That is just the realm that I'm really comfortable in. So it doesn't make you feel bad about what your weaknesses are, but it can give a tremendous amount of insight to what can you explore that is in natural alignment with what you were born good at, that isn't going to change over time. And the other side of that is how do we maybe steer away from pathways that could be um, challenging for you if you're kind of fighting your natural abilities. So, yes.
And I was gonna say, I completely agree with this, and I think if students and families are looking to work with an independent educational consultant, this idea of assessment is a critical component because,
Mhm.
as you said, we can't help students with this process until the students understand themselves a bit more. Because
Absolutely.
they'll come to us and they say, "Well, what's the best college for my kid to go to?" And I'm like, "Well, I need to know your kid before I can figure
Right.
out what are some possibilities and options for you." And I really love the point that you made that students are only really exposed to the 5 core subject areas. So you have your English,
Mhm.
math, your science, your social science, your world language, and maybe also your fine arts. And careers, as we know this, the adults listening to this conversation are going, yeah, the careers in the world are far beyond those core subject areas. So how can we help these students understand themselves and then also understand what are all of their options that are out there so that they really
Mhm.
can explore? We don't have the same career exploration stuff that's going on in our world as we did. When I was a kid, my parents were introducing me to all of their friends and saying, "Oh, this is so and so. He's a banker and this is what he does."
Absolutely.
And I got a lot more context of what people did, and I don't see that as much. I have some of my own students don't even know what their own parents do. Like when I ask
It's
them
true.
like, "Okay, we're working on filling out your college application. What is your parents' title at their job?" And they look at me like,
I don't know.
"Uh." And I'm just going, "Okay, parents, we need to back this train up and you need to make sure your kids understand what you do, and how did you
Right.
get to that?" And I also think that both you and I, Amy, have come from a liberal arts background where we know that the
Mhm.
directions change constantly. And so the world is changing, and I'm always worried about students, as you said earlier, okay, I'm going to be a biology major, so I'm going to be a biologist. And that straight line linear path
Mhm.
is almost setting up students up for failure in many instances because the world may change. That job may not exist or it might be in a very different
Right.
context. So we're dealing with students understanding themselves. We're dealing with lack of knowledge of careers and lack of perception as to how careers evolve over time. Um, so I wanted to take a moment and pull up your website for those watching on YouTube.
Okay.
For those not, it's going to be in the show notes. So check out Amy's website. And I just wanted to show some information she has on there to help you understand visually about these various different assessments. So one thing I love that Amy has done on her website, she really has highlighted the various career services that you offer, Amy, and it goes through what
Mhm.
the Highlands Ability Battery Assessment does, and a little bit about the Myers-Briggs Strong Interest Inventory, and then it also has a great chart showing the difference between the various assessments that you offer, and these are really deep
Right.
dive assessments. So I do kind
Yes.
of the 10-minute version of these assessments. I do
Right.
the intro version. I am not trained in this stuff, but I do offer a lot of my students the short version, the very small version.
Sure.
Um, but you really help them go through the deep dive. I've done the Myers-Briggs full one. It's a long assessment to take,
Hmm.
but you really do get a lot
It
out of it.
is.
So I appreciate that you have this information on your website so families can
Hmm.
look at the various assessments and decide what might be most beneficial to them. And as you said, students are able to take multiple assessments. It just means that they're going to be sitting and answering a lot of questions. But
Right.
those questions, as you said, will help them better understand themselves. And then for
Hmm.
you as an independent educational consultant, you can then better give them direction as to what might work for them academically, socially, as far as a college or university that will fit their future.
Absolutely. I love the way that you framed that. Colleges say we're preparing students for jobs that don't exist. So, yes, we're still going to need nurses and engineers, and we're going to need those people. But colleges, and because you said that we're both, I am a proud liberal arts graduate. I think about those durable skills that can transition you from one realm to another realm. The core. The people skills, the communication skills. Sure, it's fantastic to be fluent in technology. That's a skill set that is incredibly valuable. But problem solving, communication, customer service, those finer skills that are developed can be the difference in pivoting between fields. So those are those core skills that the liberal arts schools are really focused on developing, those key critical thinking skills. So I'm a big advocate of that. Um, I think that one of the things that I do initially with a family is kind of reorder what we're doing together. It very often starts with, this is the college major. What are the schools? And I really want a lot more information
Yes.
before I go recommending colleges. I like to think fit is always first. I just don't personally believe that name is everything. I think it's very
Right.
little in this process. I think it's all about what students do with the opportunities they are given at any school uh, to which they choose to attend. So, what I like to do is have my very first conversation one on one with a student. I just want to know what they like about school. What are their friends up to? What are they looking for in a college experience? What are the type of students they want to be around? Do they want an outdoorsy place to be? Do they want a highly intellectual place? Just like tell me about your friends and what you guys like to do outside the classroom, in the classroom. So there's a lot of information gathering in that first conversation, pretty naturally evolves to, what do you think you might want to study? And I will hear forensic science, for an
Yeah.
example. Excellent. How did you hear about forensic science? Well, it just sounds really cool. And I really love like blood spatters. I just want to
Oh,
study blood
they
spatters, right?
let's be real, they've watched Crime Scene Investigators or some TV show
Bingo.
and they go,
So have I.
I love that. Yeah.
Right. So The amount of eye-opening that conversation can sort of get into is, do you kind of know what that person does over the course of a day? Not
Right.
really. Do you know the coursework that you need to take to be that? And I'm not putting them on the spot. I'm just sort of looking for,
Right.
do you kind of know because you've been exposed to this, or is it just something that sort of sounds cool and you're feeling a lot of pressure to make a decision? That pressure to know what they want to study is real.
Real.
And I understand that. Conversely, I absolutely have students that come to me that are completely on the money when it comes to what they want to do. They have immersed
Oh,
in it,
yeah.
they have studied it, they
Yep.
are living it, they are breathing it, and there is no doubt in my mind that that student is going to go on to be what they want to be.
And
Um,
then there's a
it's
bunch of students that come to us, mostly my teenage boys, I hate to single them out, that say, "I wanna major in business," and I say, "Why?" And they say, "Because I wanna make money." And I was like,
right,
That's not the only major that makes my I do not have a
right,
business degree. I am making money." So
right.
because they feel, as you said, they feel obligated to pick something, and they haven't had the chance to figure out who they are and what actually does fit them rather than just, "Oh, I'm just gonna go on the list of majors and go, okay, that one."
That one sounds good. I took a course in, business communications, and that's it. Now, that can be a really valuable thing for them to do. But my first couple of meetings with a student is just a lot of information gathering. We do an assessment, we debrief it. We are sort of positioned to do what my process sort of is, the framework for how do we take this information that we get. So I think of it all as discovery. All discovery is good discovery. Discovering what you're not good at, what you wouldn't like, is almost equally
Yes.
important in this stage of our exploration. And I love the strong interest inventory, as both assessments do, is they give concrete examples. You are in really clear alignment with people that do these occupations that are very happy. It's a very good match for them. Um, but there's a column to the side in the strong that says
Yes.
you are really not oriented to these fields. And it can be sort of a funny thing to take a look at and think, no, you are absolutely not going into those realms. It's just not you at all. But the idea is, what do we do with the information that we gather, and how do we enact um, exposure, just
Mhm.
exposure to these fields. And your point about when we were kids, we'd talk to our neighbors, we'd talk to our parents' friends, right? So this is something that students need to get comfortable with. What do people like to talk about? Themselves. You ask
Yep.
someone for 10 minutes of their time to explain what it is they do for work, and I think most people are really willing to do that.
Yeah.
So can it be a curated program? Sure, a lot of families do want to explore something that has some structure, but can it just be looking at the opportunities that exist in your school community, in your town, in your church, in your synagogue? What are ways that you can gain exposure? What are things that you can observe? So I've had students interested in law go sit in a courtroom. Um, Watch the proceedings, listen to how it's done. I had a student that is certain she wants to be a nurse. Um, she had two shadow opportunities. She had one in a very busy hospital floor, and she had one in a private practice, nurse practitioner one-on-one
Mhm.
patient experience. This particular student in her assessments is very introverted. She's very motivated to have deep connection to patients that she wants to take care of. She wants to build relationships over time. She found the hospital floor experience to be absolutely torturous. It
I
was
can imagine.
way too many people,
Yep.
and there was way too much going on, and people are coming and going out of a hospital. She really wants to build relationships with patients over time. So it just oriented her to what could be, a better pathway for her. So I have them experiment. We research some ways that they might, if they're interested in politics, go sit in your local Board of Ed meeting. Just
Well,
take it in.
and I
What do
think
you
it's,
learn?
yeah, absolutely. I think also another way for students to get really involved and learn about things. I want to make sure that families understand that, okay, we still don't know what to do from square one. And
Mhm.
obviously working with myself or Amy is really helpful, but there is a great website. Believe it or not, every now and then the federal government creates something that is very useful. It doesn't happen all the time. But I just wanted to show, while I have my screen shared, careeronestop.org is actually
Great
a
tool.
creation from the US Department of Labor, and it is a lot of great free resources. This is also for those parents out there who are thinking of making a career change. This can
Mhm.
be a helpful tool to kind of figure out
It
what you want.
absolutely is.
Yeah, and it connects you also to local resources, so the various American job centers and things. But there's some really great free assessments, career videos. I love your idea of having students go and shadow or sit in a courtroom or go follow a doctor around. But for some of our very introverted students, that might be
Mhm.
frightening unto that. So there are career videos, and I've had students
Absolutely.
explore YouTube and say, a day in the life of a marine biologist, and there are people
Exactly.
that post that on YouTube. So it's really a great resource for students and families to check out. So if you're really stuck and you have no idea where to start, and you want to help your child or yourself as an adult, check out careeronestop.org. That's a great place to
Fantastic.
start.
In a public school system, I encouraged my students to take the ASVAB, the Armed Services Vocational Aptitude Battery. It's free. It's a pretty intensive assessment, and it's evaluated by a member of the military, but you are under no obligation to join the military. But
Mhm.
it's a pretty clear picture of where your natural strengths lie. There are incredible resources on a lot of college career center
Mhm.
pages that one of them I really like is, what can I do with this major? What
Yep.
does somebody who majors in history do? University of Michigan has a fantastic interactive graphic that you can see where their majors sort of evolved into what realm of the work world did they enter. So there are a lot of really great books and tools and resources. And What Color Is Your Parachute has been
Yep.
around forever, and it's
Yep.
still a really valuable tool to
Well,
use.
I even tell students and families, if there's someone out there that you admire and you're like, wow, I would love to have their job or their career, go look them
Hmm.
up and see what was their career path. We see a
Absolutely.
lot of people at the height of their success and we go, wow, how did they do that? And then a lot of my students are shocked, like, oh, wow, they started off at community college and then they did this
Hmm.
and they started in this career. And I think it's surprising. Now, there are some that just jettison right to the top and, have success right out of the
Right.
gate from college. But that's usually not the path, as you and I are aware. This takes time. So uh,
Right.
research people and see what's going on. Someone who might be, find out who's up and coming. Look who's the, top 25 people in that career field or something that's going on and see
Absolutely.
where do they go and what did they do. Um, so I want to take a moment to talk about myths. So, what are
Hmm.
some myths that you would like to help dispel around career and assessment and helping students prepare?
Sure. I think a biggest myth that I like to bust is that applying undecided is a bad decision. The truth is, even with deep exploration, I certainly have students that they're like, I just need to get in there and explore and figure it out. So the idea that a student that is undecided is behind, we know that 75% of students change their majors. So that's a piece of information that we know how often
Yeah.
they are changing their minds. So that the idea of entering college undecided, there are many, many schools that have established exploratory programs for freshmen that are specifically geared to helping them explore their areas of interest long before they need to,
Yeah.
decide what their major is going to be. So I think of it as undecided is open. It's open to opportunity. It's strategic when there is some structure to it, when you're using information through your learning about yourself. I think picking your major before you pick a college is just not necessarily the order of affairs. It certainly can be, but I think that what I start with, and which I think is what we all are really focused on, is let's find that fit. What is the fit from a social perspective, a
Yeah.
cultural perspective? We're not just looking for academic fit. So another myth is that my efforts to explore are somehow going to pigeonhole.
Yeah.
Um, do we find a great story? Yes, and I have one that I would love to share.
Sure.
But I look at assessments as not boxing somebody in, but rather opening up channels and pathways for continued exploration. So one of my favorite experiences in helping a student kind of discover what is her ultimate pathway is a student who came to me already knowing she wanted to study chemical engineering. She was very, very clear, absolutely loved chemistry. And we talked a lot about that, and we were starting to build a list of schools that are strong in chemical engineering. And I had her take the strong interest inventory. And the strongest theme that came up for her was artistic. And I thought, oh, that's
Oh,
really interesting. Um, the themes in the strong are broad themes that we all fit into. Are we the doers, the thinkers, the helpers, that sort of thing? And I said, so in my next meeting, I said, help me understand the role of art in your life. We've never talked about art. And she said, oh, I really like to paint. I said, okay, what do you like to paint? And she said, I really like portraiture. And she walked across her room and she showed me this self-portrait. And I said, you are insanely talented. Would you ever think of doing anything in the realm of art? And she's, no, no, it's just a hobby. Well, when we started to explore chemical engineering programs, we came across a program that a Chem E department has with a very well-known art museum,
mm-hmm.
and the chemical engineering students are learning art preservation through chemistry, and she
Oh, there you
absolutely
go.
lit up. And we explored it, and she, very strong student. She did apply early decision to that school. She is in the program. She's about to graduate, and she is going into art conservation. Now, that's a fabulous, example to give of what some
Right.
exploration can do. It was just linking two things together that she didn't see a connection between. And that's what high school students miss, is the connections between what I like and what I can do, or what I'm good at and what I can do. So it's really wonderful to see that. I've had the absolute opposite happen as well. A student really convinced they want to do something, and they dabble in it a little bit, and they come back to me and they say, absolutely not. That
Yep.
would just be,
I've
misery to me.
I've had plenty of those, and
Plenty.
I could share those stories like, oh, I'm going to be a doctor. Yeah, nope, didn't work. All right. What I wanted to do, yeah, I love those stories of when students discover their passions and their interests, and then we can help them
Mhm.
guide in the right direction. I wanted you to be able to have a moment here and be able to give a soapbox as to what you really enjoy.
Sure.
Okay, so let me get your website up here and we'll get you so it looks all pretty. Well, Amy, it's been absolutely wonderful chatting with you. I really appreciate all of the tips that you have given us today about helping students figure out who they are as a person, navigating the careers and the assessments that you are able to provide for your students and families. I wanted to give you a moment to kind of have your soapbox and say, okay, what are things that you wish that you could share with parents and students that are listening? And so
Right.
this is your time as what's the stuff that you want people to walk away with?
Great. Thank you very much. My philosophy is that teens do not need a map to the finish line. That's really not what we're trying to do here. What they need is a compass and some direction and some test drives of things to help them identify. The role of parent is to be the sponsor of those activities, encourage them to get involved in their school and their community, to explore areas of interest. We're trying to build a portfolio of clues that direct us towards something that is ultimately going to be rewarding for the student. They can earn a living doing something that they love doing. It's absolutely possible to do that. And the role of parents is to facilitate that exploration through any number of ways that they can do that. And to just sort of dial back that pressure of a student that's undecided, it just means a lot of different doors can open for them with the guidance and tools to explore.
Awesome. That is absolutely wonderful. And I think that is great advice for students and parents listening in today. Well, Amy, thanks so much for being here. I really appreciate you. You've been such a help helping us understand career exploration and assessments in the college admissions process. I hope this has been helpful for everyone listening today. If you liked this episode, don't forget to subscribe, comment if you want Amy and I to talk about anything in the future. We'd love to have another future episode. And of course, share with your friends. So, Amy, thanks again. You've been incredible, and I really appreciated having you on the show today.
Thank you so much, Chuck. I really enjoyed our conversation today. I hope this is helpful for your listeners.
Oh, absolutely. And I appreciate all the time that you've given us today.
Great. Thanks again.
Well, folks, that's all the time we have for today, but fear not, we'll be back next week with more tips and tricks to help you conquer the college application process like a boss. Until then, remember, don't chuck it out.